Everyone's talking about the big blockbusters, but the best new horror is hiding right in plain sight. These are 9 recent horror movies that you might have missed, but absolutely need to put on your watch list. Today we're looking at the films that slipped through the cracks. I'm sharing 9 overlooked horror films from 2023 to 2025 that you need to check out. These are the movies that will stick with you, the ones that'll have you double-checking the locks on your doors, and they are absolutely worth putting on your late-night watch list.
On Halloween night, 1977, America gathered around for a live TV event that shocked a nation. What happened was real. What you are about to see is the recently discovered master tape of what went to air that night.
First up is a film that got a ton of buzz at the festival circuit, but might have been missed if you stick to the big multiplexes or just simply slept on it like I did. Late Night with the Devil is one of the wildest concepts I've seen in horror in years. This movie is presented as a master tape of a Halloween night broadcast from a fictional 1970s talk show, Night Owls with Jack Delroy. David Dastmalchian plays Jack Delroy with this raw, desperate energy. His show is getting crushed in the ratings, and he's haunted by his wife's recent death. So, in a final, desperate attempt to save his career, he plans the ultimate Halloween special. He brings on a skeptic, a parapsychologist, and the main event, a young girl named Lily who is supposedly possessed by a demon. What makes this movie so effective is how perfectly it commits to its format. The directors, the Carnes brothers, perfectly recreate the look and feel of a 70s late-night TV show. The wood-paneled set, the live band, the cheesy banter, you'll pretty much feel like you're in the studio audience watching this disaster unfold in real time. The tension comes from the clash between the believers and the skeptics. Jack himself clearly cares more about ratings than he does for the safety of his guests, which just amps up the unease. As things start happening live on air, you're left wondering, is this all a stunt, or did Jack really invite evil onto his set?
Oh, c'est quoi tout ça, lui, là?
Quoi, ça t'intéresse, les bestioles?
Oh, mais ça m'intéresse à mort.
Fais gaffe quand même, hein.
T'inquiète, je te dis, moi, je suis un pro. Je te ramène à la maison.
If you have even a mild case of arachnophobia like I do, this is your official warning. You might want to skip this one. For everyone else, let's get ready for one of the most intense skin-crawling creature features in years. Infested is a French horror film that does for spiders exactly what Jaws did for sharks. The setup is simple. Caleb, a young guy living in a rundown French housing project, gets a new, highly venomous spider and it escapes. Go figure. This isn't an ordinary spider, though. It reproduces like crazy, and with each generation, the spiders seem to get bigger and smarter. Soon the entire apartment building is quarantined and completely overrun. Director Sebastian Vanek, I think that's his name. I can never say it. It's Sebastian something. No, Sebastian, that name right there, just nails the suspense. He knows that the real horror isn't in seeing the monster, but knowing that it's there, waiting. The film is packed with scenes of almost unbearable tension. Infested is more than just a simple monster flick. It takes time to develop its characters so that you actually care if they make it out alive or not. If you can handle an apocalyptic number of spiders, Infested is an incredibly well-made film that will absolutely give you nightmares. It gave me nightmares. I don't like spiders, man.
Your daughter's name?
Lila Morales.
My daughter is not an experiment.
That's Muriel. She died 2 months ago.
Next up, we have a film that takes a classic horror story and gives it a chillingly modern and deeply disturbing twist. Rebirth, the debut from director Laura Moss, is a masterful and criminally underseen take on the Frankenstein story that explores the horrors of grief and obsession. The film is about two women from totally different worlds. Celie is a maternity nurse whose daughter Leela suddenly dies. Rose is a cold morgue technician who secretly experiments with reanimating the dead. When Celie finds out that Rose has brought her daughter's body back to life, they form a dark partnership to keep the child alive by sourcing biological materials from the hospital. What makes Rebirth so brilliant is how it strips away the gothic fantasy of Frankenstein and replaces it with a stark, clinical, and terrifyingly plausible reality. This isn't about lightning storms and castles. It's about lab equipment and the grim, bloody work of cheating death. The horror comes from the character's moral decay, grounding the body horror in a mother's raw grief. And when does a mother's love become monstrous? If you're a fan of smart, slow burn body horror, Rebirth is an unforgettable hidden gem that definitely belongs on your watch list.
I can see the fear in your eyes. You saw something you can't explain.
How do you remake a cult classic that's less than a decade old? You get the original director to do it himself, but with a bigger budget. Malum is a 2023 reimagining of director Anthony de Blassi's 2014 film, Last Shift. While the original was a stripped-down, suspense-driven nightmare, this version takes everything and cranks it up to 11. The premise is basically the same. A rookie cop takes the last shift at a decommissioned police station. She's basically there to uncover the truth about her father, who went on a murdering spree there about a year ago after taking down a vicious, demon-worshipping cult. Trapped alone in the building, Jessica is hit with paranormal events and terrifying visions that force her to confront the evil that had consumed her father. What makes Malum a hidden gem is how its bigger budget makes it completely different. Where Last Shift thrived on suspense, Malum is an all-out assault of practical effects and grotesque, hellish imagery. De Blassi creates a surreal atmosphere that at times kind of feels like a literal descent into hell. For horror fans who love visceral practical effects and demonic cults, Malum is a brutal and overlooked reimagining that is absolutely well worth the watch.
Taking your medication is very important.
I'm fucking saying things! You're in deep fucking shit right now, okay? The inner wolf is ready to be released. For the one who wishes to be covered in fur, rip flesh, shed human skin.
Next, we have an indie film that is a must-see for two huge reasons. It's a deeply disturbing dive into mental collapse, and it features the final performance from a true horror icon. The Forest Hills from director Scott Goldberg flew way under the radar, but it's a raw and challenging film that's impossible to forget. The film centers on Rico, a man who suffers a traumatic head injury while hiking, which triggers a complete psychotic break. Rico's tormented by nightmarish visions and believes he's turning into a werewolf. And his sanity is worn down by his verbally abusive mother, played by the legendary Shelley Duvall in her return to the screen after a 20-year absence. As Rico's grip on reality shatters, the line between what's real and what's hallucination becomes terrifyingly blurred. What makes The Forest Hills so fascinating is its commitment to the chaos. This film is a brutal depiction of a mind coming apart. The horror doesn't come from a monster in the woods. It comes from the monster in your mind. This was Shelley Duvall's final role as she passed away in July of 2024. Seeing the star of The Shining return to horror one last time is amazing. While the film's abrasive style won't really be for everyone, it is an uncompromising piece of psychological horror and is a significant gem that you don't want to miss.
Sorry, my name. Señor es contigo.
Next is a film that's not just great horror, but one of the most powerful and honest looks at motherhood and identity I've seen in a long time. Huesera, the Bone Woman, from Mexican director, I'm not even going to try it, there's his name right there, is a masterclass in psychological and body horror that deserves a way bigger audience. The story is about Valeria, who finally gets pregnant after trying for a long time. Her life seems perfect, but underneath, she's terrified. She starts being haunted by a supernatural entity called La Huesera, a shadowy figure with crackling and snapping bones. As her paranoia and visions get worse, her life begins to fall apart, and she starts to wonder if she's even cut out to be a mother. Before she was pregnant, Valeria was a carpenter and part of the punk scene. As the pregnancy goes on, she has to give up all the parts of her life. The horror just isn't the monster, it's the horror of losing yourself to try and fit into a mold that was never really made for you. The sound design is incredible. You hear every single crack and pop of the bones, keeping you constantly off balance and kind of freaked out, really. This isn't a jump scare movie. It's about a constant creeping dread that comes from a place of deep emotional truth. For anyone who loves emotional and genuinely terrifying horror, Huesera, the Bone Woman, is an essential and unforgettable experience. It is definitely a must-see.
Night of the Reaper, huh? Kinda catchy.
Up next is a film that feels a lot like a lost slasher classic from the 1980s, but with a clever modern twist. Night of the Reaper, which premiered on Shudder in September of 2025, is the perfect hidden gem for anyone who loves a good old-fashioned babysitter in peril story. It expertly blends the slasher nostalgia with a gritty detective procedural, creating something that feels both familiar and refreshingly new at the same time. The film runs on two parallel tracks. In one, we follow Dina, a college student who takes a last-minute babysitting job on a dark Halloween night. In the other, the local sheriff gets a series of cryptic VHS tapes from a skull-masked killer known as, you guessed it, the Reaper, sending him on a morbid scavenger hunt. As the night goes on, these two storylines collide in a tense and bloody fight for survival. So for fans of retro slashers like House of the Devil, Night of the Reaper is a creepy and inventive film that deserves to be on your watch list. So go check that one out.
This is the fourth child abduction in the past 12 months in the Los Angeles County area.
Child's in the house. The child.
Next is a film that wraps a deeply unsettling possession story around the very real horror of generational trauma. Traumatika from French director Pierre, whatever that name is right there, had a run on the festival circuits and was released in theaters in September of 2025. Because of its heavy themes, it might have flown under the radar, which kind of is a shame because it's a bold and powerful film. The story uses possession as a narrative to explore the cycle nature, I guess you'd call it, of abuse. It centers on Abigail, who after suffering a horrific abuse becomes possessed by a demon that preys on children. Now this turns her from a victim into pretty much an unwilling assailant. But as the story unfolds across multiple timelines, we see how the original trauma ripples outward, affecting her family for years. Traumatika is so effective because it refuses to exploit its subject matter. Instead, it uses demonic possession more like a metaphor for how trauma is passed down. The performance by Rebecca Kennedy as Abigail is the film's sympathetic and shattered core. It's an incredibly demanding role that she carries with raw vulnerability, that she carries with raw vulnerability. Be warned though, this film is not an easy watch, but for those who appreciate horror that confronts social taboos head on, Traumatika is a shocking, daring, and unforgettable film.
Antes de que nazcan más. Los tiempos de la fe.
All right, I'm ending this list with a serious warning. The final film, When Evil Lurks, is not for the faint of heart. This is not a fun, spooky movie to watch with your friends and a bowl of popcorn. This is a bleak, brutal, and utterly terrifying demonic possession film from Argentina that will get inside your head and stay there. The story is set in a remote village where two brothers, Pedro and, is it Jimmy or Jaime? I don't know. I'm terrible at this. Anyway, they discover a rotten, which is basically a human host for an unborn demon. Their attempt to deal with it goes horribly wrong, and they accidentally unleash the demon on the whole community. What follows is pretty much a frantic road trip as the brothers try to save their family from a pure evil that spreads kind of more like a virus. What makes this film disturbing is the new rules it sets up. This is not your typical possession story. Here, the demon is a physical contagion with a specific set of rules. You can't use electric lights. You can't say its name, and you can't be afraid. And most importantly, you can't kill it with a gun, because that just releases the evil. These rules create like an incredible sense of helplessness because every human's instinct is pretty much the wrong one. This film is relentlessly grim and has some shocking moments of violence, but the gore isn't just for shock value. It's part of the film's worldview. A vision of a world where evil is a real tangible force. It's like watching a car crash in slow motion, knowing that no one can stop it. If you have the stomach for it, When Evil Lurks is a raw, powerful, and unforgettable masterpiece. And that's the list. 9 incredible, terrifying, and thought-provoking horror films from the last couple of years that you might have missed. These films prove that some of the most exciting and original horror is happening just under the surface of the mainstream. If you enjoyed this dive into the horror hiding in plain sight, please consider giving this video a like and subscribing to the channel. It really helps us keep finding and celebrating these amazing films. So thanks for watching and stay spooky, and I'll see you on the next one.